And to welcome back in for another episode of the Ball Boys podcast here for episode number 36, I believe. Dylan Mehl is always joined by Nolan Foster. Nolan, we had perhaps the best week of NFL action to date for the season in week 9. We talked about it all week. It was just very clearly a loaded slate from top to bottom, from 9:30 to the Sunday night game. Even last night's Monday night game was intriguing going into it, despite it not turning out to be quite so intriguing in the end. Week 10 looks a little gross. I'm not going to lie. I actually have to be traveling Sunday for some of the games. And I was like, well, this is the Sunday, right, to be on the move. But we'll talk about week 10, of course, on Friday's episode. Let's talk about week 9 and start off with our best bets recap. We both go 2-1. So the gap was not closed by you. On the season now, you are 16-11, and I'm 18-8-1. So bottom line, in terms of people who have been tailing us, you're up money. You're up units. Bottom line for our competition is I stay ahead for the time being. But again, it's a 2-game lead. We do 3 games a week, so plenty of time to catch up. It could all change in the matter of 1 week. Let's talk about some of the games. First off, I had Packers. I think it was -2.5. I got them at the line, closed at -3.5. Either way, they covered. My whole logic behind it was I didn't think Stafford was going to play with the Rams bye week following up. Stafford obviously didn't play, and then they couldn't move the ball. The Packers quite literally needed to score 1 touchdown to cover the spread, and they scored 2. Aaron Jones was freed for my fantasy team, so all in all, the Packers game was a big W for me. I believe we both had the Eagles. We'll talk about them in a second. What was your third game? Because I know you had Chargers.
Dolphins.
The Dolphins. Oh, so they did not cover. That was your loss. We'll talk about them a little bit later, but I tried to warn you, man. Patrick Mahomes off of a loss, betting against him. I tried to warn you. So the Monday night game was the first game in our best bets history that we went toe-to-toe. You had Chargers. I believe when we did it, it was -2.5 or -3. The line closed all the way at -3.5 for the Chargers, I believe. Doesn't really matter where you got it if you tailed. It covered. Justin Herbert looked okay against the Jets. I mean, he didn't turn the ball over as much. I know for fantasy purposes, he didn't do what he needed to do. It's a funny story. Check out Nolan's Twitter to see that one. But the Chargers, hey, this was kind of a fork in the road of their season, it felt like, where if they lost this one, like the AFC playoffs are going to be a logjam, and there's going to be probably 2 or 3 solid teams that will be better than who was ever the 6 and 7 seed in the NFC that miss out. And it's just kind of way the quarterback situation shook out this year in terms of the AFC just being so heavily populated with great ones. But the Chargers keep their hopes alive. The Jets, they're not done, obviously, but we'll see when Aaron Rodgers comes back. He was throwing 55-yard passes last night. The thing for me that has to be uber concerning, though, is that Jets O-line is still bad. They gave up 6 sacks to the Chargers defense. So when Rodgers comes back, he needs to be 100%. It's not going to be like, oh, you come back and you'll be able just to throw it away. Like, you're going to come back and get hit with that O-line. And then let's move into the Eagles game because we both bet the -3. It covered. So let's talk about the reactions to this. The first part of this that we have to talk about goes back to Sunday, some kind of Twitter interactions that we both had. Obviously, you're a creator for Des Bryant's High Point brand, so you've got some relationship there. Obviously, we do this together, so I would imagine that while me and Des don't know each other, my name at least looks a little familiar on his timeline. And I'm not like trying to be like cocky about it. I just would assume. Right? So he was tweeting, of course, big Cowboys guy, about the game. At halftime, he was talking. And then in the third quarter, the Eagles took over that game. They won the quarter 14-0. 2 really solid drives from them, both ending touchdowns. They're up 28-17. I hit him with the tweet at him. The Cowboys fans are quiet right now. He quote tweets it, so it gets 1 million impressions, and he blames the refs. Which, come on, Des, come on, man, come on. You know that if it's up to the refs, you're not playing well enough to win. But the refereeing in that game was pretty egregious, and it wasn't one-sided, in my opinion. I thought it was just bad all around. I get it where the losing team is the one that feels like they got the worst end of the shake. But if the Cowboys came back on that final drive and won the game, I bet there'd be plenty of Eagles fans that, come on, that wasn't PI on Bradbury. He didn't even initiate the contact. So for me, the refereeing's kind of a wash. And ultimately, what I learned from this game is that the Philadelphia Eagles, this is why they're great. And this is why the Cowboys have a ceiling. The Eagles can win in a variety of ways. They can run the ball, they can pass, they can win in these close games. They can win if the refereeing doesn't always go their way. At the end of games when they need to make plays, they make them. The 2 sacks at the end there. And for the Cowboys, unless they're blowing you out this season, they're not winning. That was my biggest takeaway. What was yours?
Honestly, for me, I think Dak played an awesome game and the Cowboys team. I mean, they had the perfect strategy game plan against our offense and defensively. I think for me, it's just it's weird to admit, but the Cowboys should have won that game. And it's kind of wild because the Eagles are sitting at 8-1. And like we always say, good teams, find ways to win, even when it looks like they shouldn't even win. They even covered. So, I think the Dallas Goedert injury will hurt. Luckily, they have a bye week, so they could game plan and kind of strategize for their big kind of set of games coming up. But I mean, Hurts played pretty well for what he was going through. That fourth quarter, that offense just looked really stagnant, and I don't know what was going on. But I do give him props. That D line showed up when it mattered. That defense had super awesome. Play in the red zone and into the goal line stops. So I give them props, because that pass defense was letting up a lot of yards, but when it mattered most, they bend but didn't break. So
yeah, I want to tail back something you said because I do disagree with what you said about that the Cowboys should have won the game. I feel like no matter which team won the game, the other team's fan base was going to feel like they should have won the game. If Dallas goes down at the end there, when they're at the 11-yard line and they score a touchdown and win that game, we would have felt like we should have won that game. Ultimately, it was a coin flip game. I think 5 out of 10 times it goes to Dallas, 5 out of 10 times it goes to Philly. We just landed on the Philly side of things. And I think it spoke to what Dallas is as a team, that they can compete with some of the top tier teams in the NFC. After that brutal loss earlier in the season to the 49ers, we were kind of like, oh, is Dallas just kind of a fake good team? But Dallas hung in there. Dak played, for my money, his best game in a long time, and it was in a loss. Football is a game of inches. You had Schoonamaker literally inches short of a touchdown. Dak stepped out by inches, and that would have made it a field goal game. And then maybe you don't take those sacks. You play for overtime after the first sack and kick a field goal. Obviously, a lot changes in that football game. Certain things do kick Dallas's way, but I also think Philly responds differently and they play differently if they're only up a field goal instead of up, where they know they just have to prevent a touchdown. They're not playing as far back over. So you could dive down the rabbit hole there of what ifs and what would have happened. But what did happen was the Eagles won a tough game. And that's what they've been doing all season. They win in shootouts. They win in low-scoring games. They win when they need to run. They win when they need to pass. They win, when they fumble the ball like they did versus Washington. They win. And that's just the bottom line. They're 8-1. They find ways to win. And what's crazy is, we've talked about this a couple times. Everybody keeps saying, the Eagles aren't good. They're not playing their best football. But they're still 8-1 with the best record in football. That has to speak to what you think of this team. If you're one of the people saying they don't even play their best football, we should have beat them. What if they did play their best football then? You can't leave that feeling confident if that's how you feel. You mentioned the Goddard injury. I wouldn't be shocked, and this is personally how I would tackle it, if we saw a lot more 4 wide receiver sets instead of a tight end out there with Julio Jones and Zacchaeus both playing at the same time. I think Julio's a big enough body, especially in the red zone, that I think he could just run Goddard's routes. Obviously, on run plays, Aquaguanon and Stoll be out there, but don't be shocked if we see more 4 wide receiver sets. For Dallas going forward from here, they have to feel the best they could after a loss, right? I mean, you just went toe-to-toe with team with the best record in football, team that was just in the Super Bowl. And now they're coming to your house in 5 weeks, so you'll get your opportunity to get your lick back, per se. But overall, I thought we watched, and I said this, and I got some pushback for it, but what may be the 2 best teams in the NFC. Go head to head.
Yeah, and I do worry that maybe if you have to play them in the playoffs, that'd probably be our worst.
I kind of hope Dallas wins in Dallas, and obviously, like when the week comes, I won't be rooting for Dallas. But if we beat Dallas twice in the regular season and then face them in the playoffs, that would be worrisome. Beating a good team 3 times in one season is really tough.
Mm-hmm.
So I would kind of go, shit. Like, I'm happy we won, but now I really don't want to see them in the playoffs because they'll have gotten 2 looks at us and they'll really have some in them. But I think it was huge for the Eagles to get the win in terms of NFC East standings. Now that they're 8-1, Dallas is 6-3, 5-3, one of the 2. Yeah, they have 3 losses, so they're 2 back.
Solid too for our bye situation, because if now that we got that win, I think our percentage is 70 or 75%. We're gonna get the number 1 seed, which is obviously freaking huge that we won.
Yeah, with the 49ers and their losing streak, obviously they were viewed as a big threat. They've lost 3 in a row going into their bye. Now we beat Dallas. We have a 2-game lead on them, and we already have 1 win when it comes to the tiebreaker. We beat Washington twice this year. So in terms of divisional wins, if Dallas were to lose to either Washington or the Giants, we play New York twice at the end of the year. So we'll see where that shakes out in terms of what it'll look like. Daniel Jones this week. Sadly, looks like he suffered a torn ACL. So all in all, the Giants season wasn't really alive, but feels like it's pretty much dead now, and they'll probably be tanking. They currently have the number 4 pick, and they have their own draft pick. So if it was me, I'd want to scoot into that top 2 any way possible and go get Marvin Harrison. If I was the Giants, as an Eagles fan, I kind of hope that they stick right at 4. But let's move forward and talk about a different New York team. We called it. For any long-time viewers, this is going to be a victory lap. And if you're a Buffalo Bills fan, this is going to be infuriating. But we tried to warn y'all. Nolan a little bit more so than me. So, I'll end up giving him the reins here. But the Buffalo Bills, man, they lose to the Cincinnati Bengals 24-18 on Sunday Night Football. They fall to 5-4 in the season, and they are currently the 9 seed in the AFC, meaning they would miss the playoffs if they started today. How you feeling?
Actions speak louder than words, and that's all I gotta say to that, man. I mean, it's wild because yes, we called it. Yes, we made bold predictions, but for it to come to fruition this quickly is, it's kind of wild, and if you're a Bills fan, man, it's going to get really ugly soon because your window, like we mentioned, was shut. And now after this season, if they don't make playoffs, oh my, that team is going to blow up.
Yeah, well, I don't know how much of a blow up is needed. They have to fire Sean McDermott. A defensive-minded coach has got to go for this team. Josh Allen played his best football when Brian Daboll was there as the OC. He left because he was too good, and now he's a head coach. And last year, Daniel Jones had his best season ever under Brian Daboll. And Josh Allen regressed. And the offense has regressed again for Buffalo. And it's not a coincidence. They, for 2 off seasons, we talked about it, neglected having any form of a run game outside of their quarterback. They also neglected having a solid secondary weapon. And I had people telling me Gabe Davis is good. Gabe Davis is good. I don't think Gabe Davis is good. I said it. And in this game, 0 receptions for 0 yards. You can't have that out of your second best offensive option. Again, when you don't have a run game, then your wide receiver core better be loaded, because Stephon Diggs is getting double teamed, hell, even triple teamed at times in this game, and Josh Allen's trying to get him the ball, but at the end of the day, if 14's double teamed, like, it's going to have to be somebody else. That's why Dalton Kincaid had 10 receptions in this game. And listen, Kincaid might be that guy for them, but we know with tight ends, it takes longer. They usually do not hit in the first year, and they don't come in and be your number 2 option like that right away. Like for Detroit, Sam Laporta, probably their second receiving option, but they have Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery in a real running game and a real offensive line. The Bills, it's a one-dimensional offense and a Josh Allen scramble. He had half of their running attempts in this game. What does this team do when they're in the big game? They take the run and throw it away because it's not dynamic enough for them. And we saw this coming a mile away. Stephon Diggs gets frustrated. And I hope for the team's sake that he doesn't ask out this offseason and is just happy with a new head coach in there. We know him and McDermott had problems this offseason. McDermott is going to eat the bullet on this one, and he should. He is the problem because and here's what I'll say. Tre'Davious White and Matt Milano being done for the season, that fucking blows. That sucks. Those were 2 of your 3 or 4 best defensive players. I get that. But to be out of the playoffs with the talent that you have remaining is still unacceptable. It'd be one thing if you made an AFC championship and you lost because you didn't have those guys. And I could say, well, you ran into Kansas City and you didn't have your, 2 of your 3 best defenders and you lost a close game. Bounce back next year. Go get them next time. To be 500, to be closer to last place than first place in the AFC, that's a problem when you have what is viewed as a consensus top 5 quarterback in Josh Allen, a consensus top 10 wide receiver in Stephon Diggs. I picked him to win the division. You were the favorites to win the division. That's a problem. And for me, the solution is very simple. You fire McDermott and go get Eric Bieniemy to be your head coach. Look what he's done in Washington. Seriously, Sam Howell has had probably, I don't know the number on it, but I would guess Sam Howell has had more 400-plus yard passing games this season than Josh Allen. Like, I would guess. Because he's had 2 against the Eagles. So, unless Josh Allen's had 3, which I doubt, that's the case. But, man, if you were the Bills, is there any move you're looking to make besides fire McDermott? Because I really think they're a coach away from kind of steering the ship right and getting those guys back on defense from injury. But are you taking calls on Diggs? Are you trying to kind of do what the Chiefs did in terms of Tyreek Hill? Or just because, I don't know, because the Chiefs had Kelsey, though. It's not like you have another option.
Yeah, I mean, I think Diggs is probably gone this offseason.
You think he asks out, or you think that they want him out?
A little of both. I think him and Allen, they haven't been on the same page since the summer, which we mentioned, and that whole saga. And, if I'm a Bills guy, like, I think they have to make that move because you look at the future. They need receivers. They need an O-line. They need a running back. They need to get younger. There's a lot of pieces they still need. And, I don't know if keeping Diggs and paying him all that money is worth it. So, I mean, you have your franchise guy in Josh Allen. He's obviously not a top 3 guy right now, but he has a potential to possibly be that. And he's still pretty young, so you have to do as much as you can to really set him up for success. So that's what I would do. But I don't know, man. If the Bills and just that whole – it's just a sinking ship. That's what it is, and eventually it's just going to sink.
Yeah, and they're not even trying to plug up the holes at this point. They're kind of just sitting around saying, God, please fix the holes in the ship. Let's also talk about the Bengals in this game. 5-3. They look good, man. Back to back, 3 straight weeks, really. They beat Seattle, San Francisco, and Buffalo. All above 500 teams, all playoff caliber teams when they beat them. They're back, man.
They look good. I will admit, man.
I think I'm way higher on them right now than you are.
No,
And
I am pretty high on them. I just want to see them beat one of those high caliber teams.
who do
I
they?
know they're not. I know they beat the Niners, but we're not the biggest on the Niners. Purdy had a concussion, and the Bills.
Well,
But
Purdy played that game.
like, I want to when they play the Ravens. That's
Yeah.
when
I mean,
I'll
well, we'll
judge.
get to our top 5 in a little bit, but
Yeah.
the Ravens are in both of our top 5s and consensusly high. So it's not necessarily beat the Ravens. It's how do you stack up against the Ravens? They face the Texans this week, man. And the Texans, we'll get to them because we were asked about them in the Q&A section coming up. But beating a Texans team, that's impressive at this point. And then after that, Thursday, primetime, they travel to Baltimore. So you'll get your wish. You'll get to see them on a short week. It's a Thursday game, yeah.
All right, at least that one's good.
So that's that. So we'll see them real quick. If you guys are enjoying the pod, be sure to hit the subscribe button. We released new pods every Tuesday, Friday, and Saturday. Tuesdays and Fridays are NFL. Saturdays are NBA right now as we get the season rolling as well. As always, sponsored by the Coffee of Gods. So got me awake this morning. That and the dog barking at me, telling me to get my ass up out of bed and let him out. As well, make sure you give us a follow on all socials. Check out the College Kids for all your sports betting needs. Now let's talk about this Chiefs-Dolphins game, because you were on the wrong end of this. I was on the right end, despite it not being in my best bets. The Kansas City Chiefs, man, they go to Germany 3 days after the Miami Dolphins, still beat them by 7. The defense shuts out Miami's offense for the first time in the first half in 40-something games, 2.5 seasons it's been since the Dolphins have been shut out in the first half. Obviously, that fumble return for a touchdown at the end of the first half was the big swing in this game. If that doesn't happen, who knows, right? Momentum certainly looked like it was turning Miami's way right before that. Some irony in that fumble. Tyreek Hill fumbled the ball, which in itself is ironic. But the most ironic part of it is Tyreek Hill was traded, and in that trade was a first-round pick. That first-round pick was used by the Chiefs on corner Trent McDuffie, who forced the fumble. So you just can't script things like that, man. Yeah. And, Mahomes kind of has a quiet day, 185 passing yards, but a win's a win. The Chiefs go into the bye week 7-2, despite their flaws. And listen, man, we've been talking about the Chiefs the same way we talk about the Eagles. I'll let you have your piece on the Dolphins, but I'm going to gas up the Chiefs a little bit. They have a clear problem at wide receiver. We all acknowledge it. The offense isn't as dynamic as years past, but the defense, in terms of points allowed, is second in football right now. Probably the best defense that Mahomes has had since he's been a starter. And if your biggest problem as a Chiefs fan is what's the offense going to look like when you have Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and Travis Kelce, who can make arguments are all currently the best at what they do. Listen, man, 7-2, first in the AFC. You got the tiebreaker now over the Dolphins and the Jaguars. That's a good spot to be for Kansas City heading into the bye. The one note that I'll have on KC, I think the reason they're struggling at wide receiver is because of how many guys they roll out there. 9 different players had a reception in this game. 11 different guys had a target. You got a lot of young guys that aren't getting consistent play time. Rashee Rice, Sky Moore, Justin Watson, Kadarius Toney, who came to the system last year kind of on a whim, and he's been in and out of the lineup with injuries. MVS is your best veteran, and he joined the team at the beginning of last offseason at the wide receiver position. I just think they're throwing out too many bodies, and they should condense it down. Rashi is the one, MVS as the two, and Tony. And that's like the main three guys that play 70 to 75% of the snaps. And I think you'll see a lot better chemistry between Mahomes and those guys. I think you'll see some of those younger guys, especially Rashi, who's like in the limited role that he's had. He's been excellent. He gets targeted on like 50% of the routes that he runs. So, but that'd be my one note. But again, it's the Chiefs, man. They won a game where Travis Kelce had like 14 receiving yards.
Yeah, man. I think this game just more so told me about the Dolphins, which I should have just listened to myself. If you would have told me that the Miami defense held Patrick Mahomes, I think, to what was it, 14 offensive points?
Yeah.
He got 14 points. Like, you would take that all day. And, that Miami offense just was kind of just horrible in the first half. I don't know what was going on. We thought that the Chiefs, would be stagnant with their jet lag, but looked like it was the Dolphins instead, which is just surprising. Maybe coaching, I don't know, but
Yeah.
Tua just, I mean, a lot of people are finally kind of putting him on the train and the Dolphins of how they're overrated.
Yeah, I noticed he's fallen out of MVP rankings.
It took people a while to finally realize that, but I'm glad finally people are realizing that. But I don't know, man. The Chiefs, they are very good. They're the defending champs. They've been there before, so I don't want to really put too much out there. But they really do not impress me right now. I mean, I'm really excited to see how they play against the Eagles. I think that's going to be a really true telling on where each team is at. But I mean, if I'm the Chiefs, if I'm a Chiefs fan, yeah, we won the game. But I mean, it's tough because like their offense just doesn't look right, and I mean their defense is playing out of this world. But when you play a team like the Bengals, like the Bengals have their numbers. So if they play the Bengals and their offense is rolling, like I don't know if that Chiefs O can keep up, and even the Ravens, man. So if I'll wait for my rankings, but if I'm a Chiefs fan, like I would, be really hesitant to really pump out my chest right now.
Yeah, here's the thing with Miami, right? 0-3 against teams with a winning record. 6-0 against teams with 500 or worse. They beat up on bad teams, which you're supposed to do, but now you faced 3 teams with winning records. And we just talked about the Bills before. They blew you out. You lose to the Eagles in which felt like a game that you never really had a shot in. And you kind of fumble away a game that the Chiefs tried to give you. They didn't score in the second half. And you had multiple opportunities. So I think some of the Miami offensive struggles, we got to give props to the Chiefs defense. They have been elite this year. But Jalen Waddle in and out with injuries this year, that kind of blows. Is Devon Achane enough of a dynamic player to shift this game? Maybe. Maybe in the first half he breaks one loose. I don't know. We'll see what happens. He's still on track to come back for week 11. So we'll get to see this team. Yeah, thank God from a fantasy perspective. But we'll get to kind of see what this team looks like with him out there. But like you said, I give the Chiefs the benefit of the doubt because at this point, how could you not? But if you did just take this season in a vacuum, there is some cause for, I don't know if this is the Chiefs team that's going to go win a Super Bowl again. And that's the standard for them. I want to pull something up here, but in terms of, plus minus point differential, they have a worse plus minus than Baltimore, than Buffalo, than Dallas, than San Francisco. Now, those are teams that blow teams out, but they are still right there with Philly and Miami. So, overall, I guess you can't hate on it too much. The Chiefs do find a way to win 4-1 at home, 3-1 on the road, 2-1 in the division, 5-1 in the conference. So they're there. They're still floating. And again, just like we say with the Eagles, you kind of know that their best football hasn't been seen yet. What adjustments does Andy Reid make up the bye? Let's hop into the top 5 teams. I have a feeling this is going to lead to some debate, at least with the list that I know that I have. But let's hear yours.
Yeah, so number 5 for me, I'm gonna have the Cincinnati Bengals. They're playing great. The last 3 weeks they've been kicking ass, and they look pretty on par to what we expected going into the year. So excited to see how they keep it up. I know they got the Texans this Sunday, so it should be a nice game. 4, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're number 1 in the division. They're top of the AFC. And I mean, they're playing well. I think they had a bye last week, right? I'm pretty sure. Yeah. They had a bye week, so can't
They
really
get San
take them out.
Francisco this week. Both teams off a bye.
Yeah, big game. So I can't take them too high, can't take them down. So they're at 4. Number 3, I have the Kansas City Chiefs. For me, they had a big win Sunday. Not as impressive as I thought. But I had them number 2 last week, so I can't really bring them down too much. So I'm gonna keep them at 3. Number 2, I have the Baltimore Ravens. They just absolutely murdered the Seahawks. That was very
so much so
impressive.
it didn't even make the cut for the show.
That was super impressive, man. They're steamrolling, and like you mentioned, I think you said like not this week, but the week after they play Cincinnati. So hey, I mean that's a big game for both teams. So excited for that game, and I mean if you're a Baltimore fan, like they look good, man, and Lamar for MVP. It's still, I mean, for me, I saw odds. I think Hurts, Mahomes, and maybe somebody else is still higher than Lamar Jackson right now. And I don't know, man.
A third player? Mahomes and Hurts doesn't surprise me. I'd be shocked if there was a third player. I'll look that up while you talk about your number 1
There's
team.
at least those 2 for sure. And I'm like, man, like Lamar looks great in that Ravens offense. And then number 1, I got the Birds. Best record in the league, 8-1. Had a big win against Dallas, and they play the Chiefs in 2 weeks. So they play the Chiefs, beat the Chiefs. Like that's a huge W for them. Revenge. So go
in
Birds.
Kansas City in that game too. So that
Big
if
game.
the Eagles are able to win that game in KC,
But
and
you
we'll
already know T Swift will be there. So I don't know if you want to get the over on the Kelsey yards right now, or you want to
especially
wait
he's
until
playing the
it.
Eagles. He might hit 150 against us. Jake Ferguson just dotted us up.
Yeah, no, the middle, the defense is a problem, and just I don't know how they could fix that. I think honestly they just have too many missing pieces in the middle of the field. Like they got Dean there, and the other 2 guys, they were gelling before he kind of came back. So I don't know if you go back to those 2 or kind of keep Dean out there. So we'll see.
Yeah. For reference, the MVP as it currently stands: Patrick Mahomes plus 240, Jalen Hurts plus 320, Lamar Jackson plus 500, Tua Tagovailoa plus 650, Joe Burrow plus 900. Enters in at number 5. And anybody that knows why I'm smiling, I have that futures bet. I make one every year. I just throw $5 on it, just something to watch throughout the year. It's a 3-leg parlay of the award winners. I had Tyreek Hill, Offensive Player of the Year. When I bet that, it was plus 2,000 in the parlay. TJ Watt, Defensive Player of the Year. And Joe Burrow, MVP. $5 to pay out $7,500. FanDuel's currently offering me the cash out at $45. Okay. So, 9 times my investment already. But we're letting that shit ride. But let's get into my top 5. I thought we were going to have some debate. We're not. They're very similar. At number 5, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence, him and this group of guys really turned it around from the start of the season. In the last month, I don't think they've lost a game. They go out there and they don't really dominate, but they go into every game and win fairly handily. On the season, a plus 37 run differential. They're on a 5-game win streak. How could you not have the Jaguars in your top 5 at this point with the way that they're playing? I do worry a little bit about how dynamic their offense will be, just because Calvin Ridley's been hot and cold. Christian Kirk, how much can you rely on him in big games? Travis Etienne, He's dealing with a little bit of injuries. I think he'll be fine after the bye, and it came at the right time. But how can he hold up? That just a little kind of a young concern, fresh. At number 4, I have the 5-3 Cincinnati Bengals. They're on a 4-game win streak. Joe Burrow is back, man. I said it last week, and I'm doubling down, having them ahead of the Jaguars. This team is who we thought they would be at the start of the season. I had them in my Super Bowl for a reason. The offense is clicking. We just watched T. Higgins have a 100-plus receiving yard game. If Jamar Chase isn't giving you 100, T. Higgins is at this point. Joe Mixon looks really solid now that the passing game has opened up. Joe Burrow's been mobile. And that defense, man, you hold the Bills under 20 points. I know we kind of ragged on them a little bit, but that's still the Buffalo Bills, man. Still Josh Allen, still Stephon Diggs. Your defense got to show up to hold that team under 20, and the Bengals did that. At number 3, I got the Kansas City Chiefs. We talked about them at length. I do worry a little bit about their pass-catching options outside of Travis Kelce in the playoffs and how consistently Mahomes could lead that team to playoff wins. You'll have to win at least 3 games to win the Super Bowl. Can that group outscore 3 teams? Only 14 offensive points against Miami. That's a concern. Number 2, I have the Baltimore Ravens. Clear and cut, the best team in the AFC right now. And if you had them at number 1, I wouldn't argue with you. The best run differential in all of the NFL, plus 115. The defense leads the NFL in sacks, kind of an under-the-radar thing for them. Lamar, despite the numbers not being so flashy, has looked the best he's looked in his career at the quarterback position, in my opinion. Bringing in Todd Monken to run that offense was just a home run. The mix of quarterback runs, run plays, and passing plays is just perfect at this point. Andrews, Flowers, OBJ, the best weapons Lamar's had. They're just on a roll. And if you had them at number 1, I wouldn't argue with you. But at number 1, I'm going to go with the Eagles, 8-1, best record in football. And a team that they get the benefit of the doubt because I've seen it a little bit more than I've seen with Baltimore. And I've seen the Eagles win in big games. You start messing around and having Baltimore go out there and handle Cincinnati, they'll probably move up. But you know that I had the Seahawks as a fraudulent team. So while some people may value that win a little bit more, it's not crazy for me. But, I like what Philly's doing. Jalen Hurts, in my opinion, should be the favorite to win MVP at this point in time. A.J. Brown, he's creeping on that Offensive Player of the Year. Devonta Smith, back-to-back weeks, he's been rolling. The defense, I think going into the bye, they're really going to work out some things in that secondary. I think Bradley Roby, hopefully being healthy, would be a huge plus. In that game versus the Cowboys, we kind of saw Eli Ricks get a little work in the slot from CeeDee Lamb. Young player, it happens. A tall task for him without Maddox, but the Eagles' defense, they'll figure it out. The pass rush is elite. And top to bottom, in my opinion, it's the most talented roster in the NFL. And the record proves it. So those are our top 5 rankings. I thought you were going to be lower on the Bengals. I thought you were going to call me out for putting them at 4 already. But, hey, we see it the same way. A new segment that we're introducing to the show, Q&As. Follow us on Twitter. I tweeted it out today. Nolan might tweet it out on Friday or Thursday night when we do record. So just make sure you're following us both if you want to get involved. I think I got 4 questions for us here. Let's see. Let me pull up the tweet. Yeah, I got 4 questions here. The first one from my buddy Owen. Can Houston win the AFC South at this point in time? We both just had Jacksonville in our top 5. So can Houston win it? Yeah, they could. 2 games back right now. I think the more likely scenario is that Houston gets in as a wild card team. I think that door is very much open for Houston. What CJ Stroud's doing this season for them cannot be understated. You weren't a huge Stroud guy going in. He's kind of made you eat some crow there. I was pretty indifferent on him. I didn't think he'd be this good. So I was wrong about him in thinking he'd just be average, but I wasn't like, oh, this guy's going to suck. But 470 passing yards against the Buccaneers, the rookie record, 5 touchdowns. That touchdown drive was just sensational. He's clearly the best quarterback in the draft class. Will Anderson, he's been a beast. Tank Dell, another late round pick. I mean, the offseason for them was a home run. I really do think this team is another offseason and going and getting a true wide receiver one, Devontae Adams, Mike Evans, T. Higgins, all guys that'll be available this offseason potentially. And if they go and get Stroud a piece like that with another year of progression for this defense, they'll be in the window, man. And I'm not talking about winning the division window. Like, we'll have to talk about the Texans as a Super Bowl contender next season, and they really should go all in on Stroud's contract. You got to hit while the iron's hot, and it's hot right now. You're not paying him. This is when you have to win. But as for the question, can they win the division? This team is 1-3 on the road this year. They are a young team still. Jacksonville's 4-0 for reference. So difference in coaching there. They're 1-1 in the division. I think Jacksonville is going to take the division. I think it would take a Trevor Lawrence injury for Houston to win this division.
Yeah, I mean, pretty short and sweet. I mean, I think they're just a year too early. And they started a little bit late. You know, they had a losing streak. So, but hey, if you're a Texans fan, I mean, you're looking good. You might have a franchise Q, which is super hard to get in this league, and maybe even a coach combo too. And they've been playing really well lately. So times are looking great. But I would say, yeah, Jacksonville probably has the division. But hey, you never know. They could make a wild card this year. So
yeah, I mean, I just pulled up Houston's schedule. Obviously, we know they play Cincinnati this week. You go out and beat the Bengals on the road, you'll have my attention for sure. Then they get the Cardinals, who are trying to lose. That should be a W. So we'll say that they're a 5-win team there. You play Jacksonville at home, so a winnable game. You host Denver, that's winnable. That could be 6. The Jets, that looks winnable, 7. The Titans, 8. The Browns, we won't call it. The Titans again, 9. The Colts on the road, 10 wins, 10 winnable for sure games, and then some 50-51. So I think Houston probably finishes around that 9 or 10 win mark. Still a young team, so I wouldn't be shocked. Maybe you lose on the road to the Titans, but I think wild card is certainly right there. I just want to see they're currently 9. Buffalo is 8. I misspoke earlier when I said Buffalo was 9. But yeah, they're right there in that bunch. Buffalo's 5-4, Houston's 4-4, Chargers are 4-4, Jets are 4-4. So it'll be down to the wire. The next question we got is from my buddy Nick. He said, will Justin Jefferson return this season to the Vikings? For me, the answer is yes. Josh Dobbs went out there and looked really good. And I think the Vikings are going to be in contention for a wild card spot. And I'm pretty sure Jefferson is eligible to come back, not this week, but the week after. I don't know if he will, but they play the Saints, winnable game. They play the Broncos, winnable game. And then they play the Bears and the Raiders. So over the next month, they have 4 winnable games. If Jefferson's healthy, he'll definitely be back for that stretch. He's not sitting just to sit.
Yeah, man. I thought he was done for the year with all the stuff going on, but Dobbs looks great. They got that dub. Curious to kind of see what they do this week regarding the Vikings, if they could win. So it's just a wait and see kind of game. If I had to put money on it, I'd probably say yeah, but I wouldn't be confident in it.
Yeah, I'd be pretty confident. Like, I'm assuming this question's being asked on the basis of, should I try and trade him off my fantasy team? I would not. At this point, like, if you've gotten wins, I'd wait. Like, he'll be back in the next 2 to 3 weeks, in my opinion. And again, Minnesota is currently in the playoffs at 5-4. We said that they had to beat Atlanta. Atlanta falls to 4-5. That was huge. The Saints, they're currently winning that division at 5-4, but they play the Saints this week. If Minnesota beats the Saints and they move to 6-4, I think it's really, really good odds that they're a playoff team in the NFC at this point in time. Next question from Sean. Does any team outside of Philly have a realistic shot at winning the NFC? Yeah, Detroit. Detroit would be the only other team that I think at this point in time has a realistic shot. And Philly's schedule, Kansas City on the road, you could lose that game. Buffalo at home, right now I'd say Philly's going to win that game, so we'll hold. 49ers on the road, a little revenge factor from last year, losable game. On the road at Dallas, that's a losable game. On the road at Seattle, time zone difference, that's a losable game. There's 4 potential losable games for Philly. They would fall to 12-5, whereas Detroit, they're 6-2. Chargers, Bears, Packers, Saints, Bears, Broncos, Vikings, Cowboys, Vikings. Yeah, what did I say? 2 tough games. So the Lions could certainly finish the year with 13 wins, Philly with 12, and the playoffs could run through Detroit. But that's about it for me. You think San Francisco or even Dallas has a shot at bouncing back?
If I had to take one guess right now, it'd probably be, after what I saw, it would be Dallas. I think that they have the parts there. If Dak plays how he played Sunday, I wouldn't be confident in it. You know how I feel about Dak and McCarthy, but
They have some tough games on the schedule,
yeah,
I'll say.
but even if they don't even win the division, I think they have a realistic shot because the Niners, I don't trust them at all with Purdy. That team just looks really weird. I know they'll probably turn up after the bye and maybe look stupid, but I don't trust them. But also the Lions too. I don't see it. Yeah, they could maybe get the 1 seed, but
he said winning the NFC, I took that as like being the 1 seed. If we're talking about making it to the Super Bowl and representing, then I agree with you that it's Philly and Dallas right now. San Francisco, maybe, if they kind of like get things to roll the right way and get some turnovers early in games. But yeah, the 2 best teams to come out are Philly and Dallas. And then the last question we got here is from Dom. Do the 49ers need to draft a quarterback to re-enter the elite group of NFL teams? Draft? No. Trade for or acquire as a free agent? Probably more likely. They're going to be too good that they would have. I mean, they could trade assets and move up in the draft and go get like a Michael Penix. I even think if they were able to snag a Bo Nix at the end of the first round, they'd be better off than where they are with Brock Purdy personally. I talked about it. I think this team's kind of going to fall into the same circle, and they're going to go get Kirk Cousins this offseason, and they're going to be right back where they are again. Some potential quarterbacks that could be on the move. Kyler. The problem with Kyler in division, I find it like you'd have to pay a handsome fee, but I think Kyler could be a needle mover in that Shanahan offense. It's not like a great offseason for quarterbacks. You could try. I mean, you could easily go trade for Russ's contract if you believed in him, but Stafford's another name. But again, in division, I don't see the Rams moving him to the Niners. So some of the better quarterbacks that could be on the market are from your division. I'm just quickly scanning here. Yeah, I'm not feeling the Niners. Maybe the Niners do need to trade up in the draft because it doesn't look like the free agents or the tradable guys. But yes, they need a quarterback change to be elite. I'll say that to the question.
Yeah, they definitely can't draft one. I think if one falls, maybe, but they definitely need to change. Purdy isn't that guy, like you said. If free agency or a trade happens,
the thing was they just traded up to get Trey Lance. They traded a lot there, and then they traded a lot to get McCaffrey. So I just don't even think they have the draft capital to move up.
We're gonna see what happens after this year because if they don't do big things like people think they do, they might be in some trouble. So
if this team fails to make an NFC championship, is Brock Purdy the quarterback week 1 next year?
No.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I think Kirk Cousins will be reuniting with Kyle Shanahan this offseason. And I think Kirk's better than Purdy, so I think it's an improvement. But if they had a healthy Kirk Cousins right now, would you call them elite?
Better. I wouldn't say elite, but they'd be better for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking they'd be borderline top 5 for me. I think they'd be ahead of Dallas at this point in time. I think they'd be ahead of Miami. I think they'd be ahead of Detroit. I think they'd be chilling right there with like Jacksonville and Cincinnati. So it depends what you view as elite. Usually elite for me is like the top 4. So they'd be knocking on the door. But those are all the questions we got. Again, if you want to participate in these Q&As, make sure you're following me and Nolan on Twitter. We'll tweet it out probably about an hour or so before the podcast going forward. I think it's like a good way to kind of interact with you guys and a nice, relaxed way to close out these episodes. But that's all we got for you guys today. Again, be sure to tune in this Friday for episode 37. Best bets continue, week 10 preview, and we're talking hoops on Saturday. Until next time, we'll see you guys later. Peace.
Deuces.